Welcome back to the channel, guys. It's MAZZ back again with another video for you guys today. On the bench today, we have 3 airbrushes that I own. So we're going to do a little comparison between them. So I'm going to try to keep this video quick. We've already went over in detail the brand new Krios PS290. That's the trigger action. So we'll go ahead and open this up because we'll need a couple pieces out of it just to show you the difference. So we'll get the airbrush and the cup. So this cup is considerably larger than the Iwata cup. All right. So this is usually my go-to if I want a nice quality paint job. But as you can also see, the trigger on the Iwata is a dual action. So down for air, back for paint. The further back you come back, the more paint comes out. It has a 0.3 needle and nozzle. And I run a little water separator on the end of this. I run a water separator on all of them. You definitely want to keep the water out of anything. I use the Iwata compressor as well. It's an older Iwata compressor. Sparmax, I believe, makes one as well. So on these two, the difference is the trigger. So trigger on the PS290, the trigger's up top. You know, it's not a trigger, it's a button kind of deal. On the Iwata HPCS Eclipse. So this Eclipse is a very nice airbrush. I want to say it's about a $200 airbrush now, something like that. I think when I got it, it was a touch more than that. This was actually my very first airbrush. So I also then went, because as I spoke about in the earlier video on the PS290, or on the Iwata, I'm sorry, the Iwata sometimes doesn't like metallics and whatnot because of that 0.3 needle. It's very small, so the orifice is very small in it. So I went and got, this is your traditional Posh H series, and this is a siphon feed. It doesn't come like this. I added this little aluminum handle. There's nothing back here like on the, if you take this off, the needle is would be back here on like an Iwata or on like the HPCS or the PS290. Back here it's just blank. It's really just there for ergonomics. People are used to filling an airbrush like that, so that's what it's there for. They come with a plastic end on them right here, a red plastic end. If you use any kind of solvent-based paints, lacquers or anything like that, and you're using lacquer thinners, acetone, anything to clean it, if it touches that plastic, it starts melting it. So I just went ahead and got, I think this is like a $5 piece of aluminum. And the way this one works is it is a single action. So it's like using a spray can. It would be like using this guy right here. You would just push down for paint. So I always set my air pressure on my regulator on the compressor, and then your paint is just on and off, on and off. And it's actually air that's on and off. The paint's actually on all the time. Let's see if we can get a close up. So as you turn this back or loosen it, it opens the needle. It moves the needle away from the opening of the orifice right there. So as you screw it back down, you'll see that needle start to come back through right there. You can barely see it. But what that does is you just set it to the opening you want, how much paint flow you want. And then when you hit the trigger, it's, you know, it's there. It's like a spray can. The downfall with that is, and I believe I mentioned it in other videos, since since the needle's not coming back up into the nozzle to cut off paint flow, if you set the airbrush down or even just set it like this and there's paint in that nozzle, it'll start to kind of drip. You'll get a little tip drip. That's what she said. You'll get a little drip coming out of here, and what it'll do is you'll get a little buildup of paint, and when you first go to hit the trigger, it'll spatter. And that's kind of the downfall of a single action. Now, if you keep a paper towel with you and you constantly clean this, it's not too bad, but this will never shoot nearly as good as these other two dual action airbrushes. People may say differently. I'm just saying you can lay paint down smooth with it. The problem is the spatters. Doesn't so much matter on the Lexan bodies because you don't really see any of those little fine spatters, but on a hard body, you would definitely see it. So that is the downfall for me of the Posh H series. Now, the upside of the H series and kind of why I got it is I was doing model cars at the time, and I was spraying 2K clear out of this, and I like to use these jars. Now, this just goes on. This is siphon fed, so it goes on there. Now, it does add a lot of weight on there, especially once you fill this thing up with 2K clear or any kind of paint. It adds a lot of weight. It's not too bad. It's still usable. Does a great job. The clear, you know, I wet sand and buff my model car bodies when I was doing it anyway. I can get it to lay down very flat, but when you're trying to get a really nice glass finish, you have to, you know, wet sand and buff. So I wanted I was going for a, you know, perfect paint job, basically. No imperfections. So also on this guy, even though it's bottom fed, it still actually comes with a cup. So it comes with this little guy right here, a little gravity fed cup. So there are options with this thing, and it's not bad. It's not a bad airbrush. And honestly, I probably picked this airbrush up more than the Iwata due to the capacity of the bottle. So that's kind of the reasoning behind the PS290. The PS290 Krios got me because of the cup size, and the trigger is a nice deal, but one huge difference between this is, like I mentioned in the video about it, is that fan tip. So that fan tip is going to spray more of an automotive style pattern, so it's going to be more elliptical. And to where these airbrushes are going to, the two airbrushes here, the Iwata and the Posh, are going to spray a circle. Gotti. But, you know, they all have their own uses. Like I said, this guy right here, for $100, it's half the price of the Iwata. It's a 0.5 needle. This is a 0.3. Anything we're doing, you're pretty much going to be able to get away with a 0.5 needle. 0.3, if you're doing some real fine shadowing and stuff like that, you can definitely use it for that. You can still get away with shadowing with a 0.5. It's just not going to be as fine. So this one, I really wouldn't. I'm sure there's people out there that can do detail work with it. It actually comes with 3 different nozzle and needle sizes. This is the biggest. This is the 5, but it's not really a 0.5. So they label theirs like 2, 3, 4, and 5, something like that. And this is the 5, but it's not a 0.5 needle. It's pretty large. So don't get caught up in the Posh saying that it's a number, because they call it a number 5. It's not a 0.5. So 3 nozzles and needles with this, you're stuck with 0.3 with this, which is not bad. It'll still spray most all paints. 0.5 is going to get you pretty much any of the metallics and the opaques, you know, the candies, all that stuff is going to go through the 0.5 very easily. Candies are usually very thin, so you may have to dial back your paint flow on the 0.5. But, you know, like I said, there is a use for all 3 of these. So I don't get rid of stuff. I like to keep all my stuff, so I'm not going to sell any of these airbrushes. Hey, I may end up just using this for, you know, 2K clear and not running 2K clear through this, you know. But I do like that fan, so I say I do that, but let's be real. I'm going to probably end up using this joint a whole lot. So give me 1 second. I'm going to go grab one more thing, and I'll be right back. All right, guys. So I went and grabbed another gun. As you can see, this guy here looks completely different, but it probably looks more familiar to you. So, like I said, I came from doing all kinds of stuff. I did Cerakote work on guns a lot. So I also invested in an Iwata LPH 80. So it's a very nice micro gun. And this is kind of the reason I bought this. So as you can see, the Iwata LPH 80 has a very large cup on it for its size. Also, you know, run your regulator and your water set, you know, your water dryer and all that stuff. But very large cup, has the dual action trigger, just like all your paint guns. So first light pull is air, second pull is paint. You also have your adjuster for the needle, fan pattern, all that. So with that being said, fan pattern, this is a better look at what a fan tip looks like. So you have air that comes out each one of these ears on the side, and that spraying against each other turns into more of a line versus a circle. Gotty. So with that said, if you look at both of these, they're both very similar the way the nozzles are made. Obviously, the PS290 airbrush has a much smaller fan tip, but the Iwata LPH 80 is a 0.8 needle, so it's not much. It's a little bit bigger than this. I could probably get away with using this. So I'll tell you why I don't use this gun in my home environment. Mainly due to it being a minigun. So this puts off a lot of paint. Even though it's only a 0.8, it still throws some paint out there. It's got a nice fan on it. It's probably got a 6-inch fan on it, something like that, depending on your distance away. But my little airbrush paint booth will not handle this. This is something I would have to spray in my buddy's booth or something like that. So I'm not going to spray 2K clear or anything out in my house with this gun. I just don't want the mess. I don't want the smell, all that stuff. You can get away with spraying this brush with 2K clear in my airbrush booth, or my little paint booth for the airbrush, because it's more controlled. You're not putting out a ton of paint at one time. When you pull this guy back, paint's coming. You know, it's gonna have a good amount of paint coming out, a lot of overspray. So that's the reason I don't use this guy. It's just laying around here. I could use it. It's not a cheap gun. You can get the other thing. The reason I buy guns like this and airbrushes like this is I want to be able to have parts if something breaks, or if a needle gets bent or something, a nozzle gets something wrong with it or anything like that. You want to be able to buy those replacement parts. A lot of these cheap airbrushes you see on Amazon, I'll just go ahead and categorize them. Any of your Amazon cheap no-name guns, you may be able to find a part, but that part may be a piece of junk. If you're buying a part from Iwata, yeah, you're paying a premium. Even for the airbrush parts, you're paying a premium. But when you get them, the quality's there. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to worry about, hey, is it the gun or is it me? You don't have to worry about all that stuff. It's probably you if it's a problem. If you've put new parts in it, you know, trying to fix something, it's probably a you problem. So, like I said, I like to keep, you know, decent quality. And this is like a $50 airbrush. This is a $100 airbrush, $200 airbrush. And then I'd have to go back and look, but I think this gun was $350 or something like that. So quite a big step to the minigun. But, you know, with that said, that gun right there lays down some nice paint. But your cheaper options do as well. So this is just a shrunk down version of a minigun or a regular full-size paint gun. So I don't want to make this video too long. I just wanted to go through my collection of, paint applicators, we'll call them, and, you know, give you an idea of what you can get. If you're just starting out, Posh makes some good stuff. You can even get a dual action Posh, but this H series is tried and true. People have used it forever. These Posh work great. You know, you want to step up, or if you want to kind of do all with one, I would probably recommend this PS290. Now, once I get into spraying with it, I'll give you a better recommendation of it. But from what I've seen, I think it's a really good gun. So I appreciate y'all tuning in as always. Like, comment, and subscribe. Turn that notification bell on so you're notified when MAZZ comes out with these videos. And until next time, guys, y'all have a good one.